Good night and welcome to this module. I needed to jump in and do a really quick beware of gaslighting post for all of you who have been supporting my videos and all the 100 places that I've posted them. I did a video on not responding and learning the art of unbothered. But let's face it, we are human, and obviously no one wants to hear themselves dragged all over the internet, especially by complete and total strangers who no one ever asked for their particular take on you or your phenotype or your race. But hey, this is the internet and everyone feels like their opinions, right, need to be etched into our holy books. Right? People feel like their opinions of other people are that important. And so I'm going to hit this straight on and literally get out of this particular conversation because I don't feel like every person who tries to start some type of chaos on the internet deserves to be paid attention to. Like, honestly, otherwise you'll be online all day addressing every troll that had an opinion. And so we're going to keep this brief, but I noticed that there was a female, and I don't name drop, maybe I'll drop a name in the link, who supposedly was on MTV at one point, who's no longer on there, what have you, just decided to go on the internet and just engage the world on her opinion on just the entire Black female race and how God views them, right? I'm really quite surprised that she might have forgotten to put on her cloak and her pastor's gown because she was explaining to the internet that, just the entire race of Black women, right? And I guess that means the Black women all over the planet, which is a lot of Black women just have no hair. And the reason they have no hair is because, God did it because he's her husband and he just cursed them. And so at first, I'm going to be honest with you, I was, in the presence of others while watching this, and we kind of laughed at it at first, honestly. And, there was some interesting feedback I heard on the internet and people going in on this person and getting upset. But at first, literally, for me, it was sort of one of those, one of those moments, because there were references and things going back and forth in the video and a lot of confusion in my opinion, because normally I try to listen to things objectively and listen to other people's opinions. But my first question, and I'm just being honest with you, was one, where is any of this coming from? Two, who is that interested or that concerned about what's going on or not going on with Black women's hair? And so I'm like, wow, this is interesting because compared to all the other complete waste of time posts I hear about just different types of people, I'm thinking, we're barely out of pandemic and I just don't get it. And so without wasting my time, I want to pull something actually that's valuable from this whole back and forth. What that whole post was, I'm not going to go into Bible verses, and because clearly, not even being like a head-on Christian, clearly the post was very, very confused about who in fact this scripture was referring to when they talked about these quote-unquote verses. And if you're a historian or a Bible scholar, I'm pretty sure you even heard a lot of confusion regarding what was being read. But I want to get to the meat and potatoes and just address it from what a 2-year-old or anyone who just hears it for a brief second would pick up. And that's a lot of ignorance, a lot of personal issues, hatred, and quite frankly, just juvenile energy. I mean, you're not a Black woman. So if you feel the God or the God in the Bible or whoever your God is did this to these women and you're not one of them, why does it pertain to you? This was my first question, because I could talk about my race in terms of the Bible and clarify to people who I am. I might even be able to talk about maybe the male race because I interact with them, but you're a complete different race of woman. And so why do you even care? Like, let's just entertain this for 2 seconds and say, well, maybe there's some relevance, or maybe at some point in history, the black or black woman race had some punishment. I don't know. I really don't even get the factual basis of what she was talking about, but let's give it 2 seconds of the attention that she so desperately wants for the post. If there was some truth in it, how does it pertain to you? First of all, let me understand how it pertains to you, and then explain why it is your position or your job to explain to the world why it should pertain to them. Okay, why are you so concerned about black women in their hair, whether they have it or not? I can understand a guy really being fixated or maybe contemplating whether he should date one, and so he reads the Bible and decides not to. But where are you coming in all of this, right? And so I like to break things down to basic common sense. You are a confused, and that's putting it very nicely. There's a lot of words floating around in my head right now, but not even on the common sense level, but even on a biblical level, I looked at and I kind of tried to find what she was speaking of, and I'm like, okay, that is definitely running around the block, okay, maybe even downtown before straight shooting on what it is that you're trying to read and share to people. And I've heard this from Christians myself, that they're not really seeing what you're demonstrating about this so-called curse on black women and whatever you're saying. Maybe people who know the Bible better could explain that. But I haven't heard any confirmations from anyone, not even Christians. And so that's one thing I would look at too. Just looking at the basic common sense of it. Every single race, as far as I know, at some point in history, had some type of a punishment, or were, quote unquote, fallen in the eyes of God's graces, if we want to look at it religiously. Every race had their time. There was the plague and the curse of leprosy onto people who didn't have melanin, and the plague, on the darker, what do you call them? Dongolo tribe, and there were just different things, different plagues, different things that happened in different points of history, where I think every race on the planet got a dose of some type of hardship or time where they weren't, quote unquote, in God's favor. That's if we even want to entertain what this person is saying. But I'm thinking, I still didn't get to get where she fit in, right? Now, as far as her being God's, or God being her husband, that was the part that just has everyone like, oh, I get it, right? And so as God's wife, it's your job to what, right? So even when you go around that circle, it's like, this woman is touched. And what I mean by touched is, you've got some trauma. Literally, you've got some trauma, and you, like so many other people, are hiding your hatred and your issues, your not surprising issues with black women. You're hiding behind your religion to express them, thinking someone is supposed to follow or listen to you. I mean, I know white men who were offended by that, because hello, look around you. There are over thousands of interracial couples right now, and needless to say, of course, black women don't appreciate all of that and your ignorance, but there are people of other races who thought that was a little bit unnecessary, right? At a time like this, why is that important to anyone? And so gaslighting is exactly that, is exactly what this person decided to do, to cast doubt, not only in the minds of black women, but in the minds of the world towards black women and who they are, in the world. And again, the ignorance is so deep there, on every level, okay? And I said in a post before, every human, right, without getting too deep, is connected regardless. There's a connection between all races, and you think you're sitting there, on a throne, looking down on, judging, or sharing with the world how God judged these people, right? Not realizing that there is a strong connection between all races of women, first and foremost, starting with the black race. Now, I can link 100 groups that will confirm that to you with facts, dates, and everything. So we're not going to get into that kind of dogmatic nonsense about the obvious fact that black women have a much more important role in the world and in history than you're suggesting. But again, if you want to isolate your verses and your curses to one race, I would look in the mirror. Okay, focus on the curse that was bestowed on your people and figure out how to remove that one. Okay, I'm pretty sure you're like, what? Well, if you don't know, then you don't know the very Bible you're reading from. Okay, focus on your race and how you can demonstrate a lot less ignorance, okay, towards other women, right? And kind of just tone that down, okay? Whatever style, length, brand, texture of hair Black women have is her prerogative. I know lots of Black women who go bald on purpose. They shave. It's called a mohawk. It's called a shave. It's very fashionable right now. Look around. I also know white women who are doing the same thing. And so to take a trend and turn it into what you want to turn it into, I don't know. But again, I'm not the only one that feels this way. My advice to women who heard this, especially Black women who have any type of feeling, because I will be honest with you, it was very annoying to hear the whole thing. I just got bad vibes from it. But I said, you know what? I refused. I wasn't going to give it any attention because I'm like, there another person goes, right? There's so many more important things that we could be focusing on. And I'm saying, listen, when a person tries to cast doubt, ladies, right? Or control people's view of you to the world. That is the first most classic form of gaslighting there is. If you look up the term gaslighting in psychology, any therapist will tell you, okay, that's all on the person who is spewing that out. That is them trying to, for whatever reason, control people's perception about Black women. Okay? And I don't have to go deeper than that. I think that's obvious. I don't even think you need to know what gaslighting is. Okay, but beware of that at a time like this when people need to be focused, coming together, working together in this pandemic, which hasn't ended, by the way, if you've been even glancing at global news. Okay, everywhere you turn around, there are supposedly new strands of this thing popping up. And yet we have trolls on the internet, right? Focusing on, spewing hatred or controlling people's perception about an entire race of women. Like that's going to help anyone, right? That kind of gap, in my opinion, that's actually very dangerous. I think we need to be focused right now. And if you're a Black woman watching this, you are beautifully and wonderfully made, okay? The best response sometimes is just the energy of unbothered. Honestly, you can be annoyed because you're human, but I think that if someone takes that much time to do that, it's all them, and whatever they're just feeling in the moment, right? People do, and what people do is usually all about them and very, very little about the other person. I had to learn that myself when looking at just different stuff online and people throwing tantrums and sharing it as posts on the internet. Okay, I've even done it myself. And I can tell you when I do that, it's because I'm in a funk that day and I feel a certain way. And so I want to drag everyone else into that feeling. Okay, Black women, you're beautifully and wonderfully made. And I'm proud of those who didn't even respond to any of that because it doesn't deserve that much attention. Stay focused, stay magnificent. And I'll see you on the next post.